Alexander Graham Bell was born in Edinburgh, Scotland in the year 1847, and he grew up in a home where the sounds of speech were always being studied and discussed. His father, Alexander Melville Bell, was a respected teacher of elocution and had created a system of visible speech which helped people who were deaf learn to pronounce words correctly. His grandfather also had worked in the same field, so the young boy grew up surrounded by lessons about the human voice and the ways in which people communicate. From childhood, Alexander was not only interested in sound, but he also showed unusual curiosity about how things worked. He would spend hours taking apart toys and small machines just to see how they functioned, and then he would try to put them back together again. This natural curiosity, combined with the family tradition of studying sound, created the foundation of his future. When Alexander was a teenager, tragedy struck the family as two of his brothers died of tuberculosis. This deeply affected him and also made his parents worry about his health. In search of a better climate and new opportunities, the Bell family left Scotland and first went to Canada before finally settling in the United States. Alexander was still very young, but he carried with him both grief and determination to make his life useful. In America, he began working as a teacher to the deaf, and soon he became known for his patience and his unique methods of helping students to speak. One of his students was a young woman named Mabel Hubbard who had lost her hearing after an illness in childhood. Alexander not only taught her with great care, but he also fell in love with her, and later they were married. His work with Mabel and other deaf students gave him a personal mission. He wanted to create ways of communication that would remove barriers and bring voices to people who otherwise could not hear them. At the same time, Alexander was drawn to experiments in electricity and sound. The telegraph was already known and used widely, but it was limited to sending simple codes of dots and dashes. Bell wondered why it should not be possible to send the full range of human speech along wires in the same way. This question became the center of his thoughts, and he began working day and night to find an answer. He found an assistant, Thomas Watson, who shared his enthusiasm. Together, they worked in small rooms filled with wires, metal parts, batteries, and wooden boxes. They failed many times, and there were nights when exhaustion almost defeated them, but Bell would always rise again with a new idea. Finally, on March 10th, 1876, the great moment arrived. Bell spoke into his crude transmitter the words, "Mr. Watson, come here. I want to see you." To his amazement, Watson, who was in the other room, heard his voice clearly through the receiver. For the first time in human history, the living voice had traveled through a wire. This was not just an invention, it was a revolution in the making. The dream of connecting people across distances with real voices had come true. The telephone spread quickly, at first among businesses and then into homes. Many people were surprised and even skeptical at first. Some thought it was only a toy, while others said it was too strange to be useful. But soon everyone realized how powerful and important this device could be. Messages that once took days or weeks to deliver could now be spoken instantly. Families separated by miles could talk as if they were in the same room. Governments could give orders rapidly. Businesses could grow faster. The world itself began to shrink as distances lost their meaning in communication. Bell became a famous man, yet he never stopped being a scientist with a restless mind. Even after his invention of the telephone, he kept exploring other fields. He worked on improving the phonograph, he studied sound in more detail, he even experimented with flight long before airplanes were perfected. He also spent years researching ways to help deaf people live better lives. His love for science was not driven only by money or fame, but by the deep desire to make life better for others. In his later years, Alexander Graham Bell lived in Canada, where he built laboratories near his home and continued to work on inventions. He also became known as a kind and generous man who gave his time and resources to education and research. When he passed away in 1922, the world paid tribute by silencing all telephones in the United States for 1 full minute. It was a powerful symbol to honor the man who had given humanity one of the greatest gifts of communication. The story of Alexander Graham Bell is not only the story of an inventor, but also the story of determination, love, and vision. He took inspiration from his family, his students, and his own struggles, and turned it into a force that changed the entire world. His work made it possible for the voices of loved ones to travel across oceans and mountains, and his vision opened the door to the modern communication systems we depend on today. From landline telephones to mobile phones to the internet, all of it carries the spirit of Bell's dream. His life reminds us that even one idea, when pursued with passion and persistence, can reshape the destiny of humanity.